The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, and it changed everything. Admiral Park stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the holographic display flicker to life. The symbol that appeared made everyone in the room go silent. It was the seal of the Galactic Council, rendered in light that seemed to carry its own weight. "They're calling us," someone whispered. The Council had not contacted Earth directly in 3 years. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 73 years now, but they were always treated like the new family member nobody quite trusted. Earth had one vote among 300 species. When humans spoke in the council chambers, other delegates checked their data pads or left for refreshments. The message played. The hologram showed a tall figure with silver skin and 4 arms. This was Ambassador Thelquin of the Velcaran Empire. His species had been exploring space when humans were still learning to make fire. "People of Earth," the ambassador began, his voice smooth and cold. "The Velcaran Empire extends to you an opportunity. We invite your finest warriors to participate in the trials of ascension." Admiral Park felt his stomach drop. He knew about the trials. Everyone did, the ambassador continued. "These trials occur once every century. They test courage, strength, and tactical ability. 70 species have competed. All have learned their place in the galactic order." He paused, and something like a smile crossed his face. "We have noticed that humanity has become comfortable in the council. Perhaps too comfortable. The trials will remind you of reality." The message ended with coordinates and a date, 3 months from now. Then came the threat, delivered almost casually. "Refusal to participate will be seen as acknowledgement of inferior status. Earth will be reclassified as a client state. Your voting rights will be suspended. Your trade agreements will be reviewed." The hologram faded. Admiral Park looked at his staff. They all understood. This was not an invitation. This was a trap. The emergency meeting of Earth's military command lasted 14 hours. Generals and admirals from every nation filled the secure conference room. Arguments flew back and forth like missiles. "We cannot send our best soldiers," General Okafor said, his voice heavy. "If we strip our defenses, other species will see weakness. Pirates will attack our shipping lanes. Rivals will test our borders. But if we send weak fighters, we lose," General Rodriguez countered. "We become slaves in all but name." "There is no good choice here," Admiral Park said quietly. "They have given us a problem with no solution." Colonel Kim, head of special operations, had been silent for most of the meeting. Now she stood up. "There is a third option," she said. "We do what we have always done. We adapt." She brought up files on the display. "Personnel records, training scores, psychological profiles. The Velcarans expect our strongest, most experienced warriors," Kim said. "They expect soldiers covered in medals and scars. They want us to send our old guard, our veterans, our legendary fighters." "Yes," Admiral Park said. "That is exactly what they expect. Then we send our young ones instead." The room erupted. Voices rose in protest and confusion. Kim waited for the noise to die down. "Listen to me," she said. "Our veterans are brilliant, but they are predictable. They follow doctrine. They fight the way the galaxy expects us to fight. The young soldiers coming out of our academies right now, they do not know what is impossible yet. They have not learned all the rules, and they desperately want to prove themselves." General Okafor shook his head. "You want to send children to face the galaxy's finest warriors?" "They are not children," Kim said firmly. "They are soldiers. And yes, they are young by galactic standards. Most council species live for centuries. To them, a human of 20 years is practically an infant. Let them think that. Let them underestimate us." Admiral Park studied the files Kim had brought. 6 names. 6 faces. Hajin, age 22. Top of his class in tactical analysis. He could look at a battlefield and see patterns others missed. In simulations, he had never lost. Nari, age 21. A sniper who could shoot the wings off a fly at 1,000 meters. Her patience was legendary. She once waited motionless for 16 hours to make a single training shot. Doyen, age 23, heavy weapons specialist. He had been reprimanded twice for excessive creativity during training exercises. Once he had turned a food truck into a mobile artillery platform. Yunji, age 20, combat medic and close quarters expert. She could disarm a fighter twice her size and have him bandaged before he hit the ground. Minho, age 22, engineer. Give him an hour and spare parts, and he could build something that exploded, flew, or both. Sora, age 21, pilot and infiltration specialist. She had broken into 3 separate military bases during training, just to see if I could. Security protocols had been rewritten because of her. These 6, Admiral Park said slowly. You really think they can win? I think they can surprise everyone, Kim replied. And sometimes surprise is better than strength. The vote was close. In the end, the decision was made. Earth would send its young soldiers to the trials. The team was assembled 2 days later. They stood in a line, crisp in their uniforms, trying not to show their nervousness. Admiral Park walked down the line, studying each face. You know what the galaxy thinks of us, he said. They think we are weak. They think we are reckless. They think we do not belong among the stars. He paused. Show them they are wrong about the first 2 things. As for the third, prove that we belong by taking what they think makes us weak and making it our strength. Hajun raised his hand. Sir, they will think we are children. Yes. They will laugh at us. Yes. And we are supposed to win anyway? Admiral Park smiled. You are supposed to do what humans do best. Survive, adapt, overcome. You are not the biggest or the strongest. You never will be. So you will have to be smarter, faster, more creative, more stubborn. The 6 soldiers looked at each other. Something passed between them. A silent understanding. We will not let Earth down, Nari said quietly. 3 months passed quickly. The team trained until their bodies ached and their minds felt sharp as knives. They studied every recording of previous trials. They learned about Valkyrian tactics and technology. They prepared for a fight they knew they were supposed to lose. On the day of departure, crowds gathered at the spaceport. News feeds broadcast the launch across every network. Some people cheered. Others wept. Everyone understood what was at stake. As the transport ship lifted toward orbit, Hajun looked back at the blue planet shrinking behind them. They sent us because we are expendable, he said softly. No, Sora replied. They sent us because we are terrifying. We just do not know it yet. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying Earth's fate toward the trials. Behind them, humanity held its breath and waited. The galaxy was about to learn something important. Never mistake youth for weakness, and never ever underestimate humans who have something. The space station called Carthion Prime was larger than any human city. It hung in the darkness between stars, a massive ring of metal and light that could be seen from 1,000,000 kilometers away. Thousands of ships surrounded it like insects around a lamp. Every species in the council had sent representatives to watch the trials. The human transport docked at a lower bay, far from the premium viewing decks. Even their parking spot was an insult. Hajun noticed this and said nothing. He simply noted it in his mind, adding it to the list of things that told him how the galaxy saw his species. The team walked through corridors filled with aliens. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some were made of living crystal or flowing energy. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Then they laughed. Look at them, a voice said in Galactic Common. They are so small. Are these really Earth's champions? Another asked. They look like they just finished school. Yunji kept her face calm, but her hands clenched into fists. Minho pretended to check his equipment. Doyun started counting ceiling panels, a habit he had when trying to control his temper. Only Nari seemed unbothered. She looked at the aliens with the same patient stare she used when looking through a rifle scope. Just watching, just learning. They were taken to their quarters, a small room with 6 bunks and a single window showing the empty darkness of space. It was clean but basic. The Valkyrian delegation, they learned, had an entire deck to themselves. They want us to feel small, Sora said, dropping her pack on a bunk. Then we will surprise them by taking up more space than they expect, Hajun replied. The opening ceremony was held in the Grand Arena, a massive space that could hold 50,000 spectators. Every seat was filled. The noise was like standing inside a thunderstorm. The Valkyrian team entered first. 12 warriors, each one massive and covered in armor that gleamed like polished blood. Their leader, Vectar the Unbroken, stood at the front. He was nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin the color of gunmetal. His armor bore the marks of 100 battles. He had never lost a fight. The crowd roared with approval. Then it was Earth's turn. The 6 humans walked into the arena. They looked impossibly small under the bright lights. Their armor was simple, functional, without decoration. They carried standard weapons, nothing exotic or impressive. The crowd went silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the laughter began. It started as chuckling, then grew into waves of amusement that echoed through the arena. Aliens pointed. Some made gestures that did not need translation. Vectar looked at the human team and laughed, a deep sound like rocks grinding together. He walked toward them, each step making the floor vibrate slightly. He stopped in front of Hajun and looked down from his towering height. Earth sent children, Vectar announced, his voice amplified across the arena. They surrender without even trying. How disappointing. More laughter. Betting screens around the arena updated rapidly. The odds against humanity grew longer. 1,000 to 1, then 5,000 to 1. Nobody was betting on Earth except Earth itself. Hajun looked up at Vectar. The Valkyrian warrior expected fear or anger or some reaction he could mock. Instead, Hajun smiled politely. "We look forward to the competition," Hajun said in perfect galactic common. Vectar snorted and walked away. That night, the team gathered in their small room. They could hear celebrations from other delegations. Music and voices filtered through the walls. Nobody was celebrating Earth's chances. "We are a joke to them," Doyen said flatly. "Good," Hajun replied. He had spread holographic maps across the floor, studying the arena layouts for tomorrow's first trial. Let them laugh. Laughter makes people careless. The first trial was announced the next morning. It was called the Gauntlet, and it was simple. Each team would enter a massive arena filled with automated defenses. Turrets, drones, force fields, and combat robots. The goal was to reach the center platform and activate a beacon. First team to do it won. Teams were judged on time and style. The Valkyrians went first. The crowd watched as they assembled at the starting line, a wall of armor and weapons. When the signal sounded, they charged forward like an avalanche. It was brutal and effective. Vectar's shield absorbed fire from 3 turrets while his warriors destroyed them with overwhelming firepower. They smashed through barriers, scattered drones like toys, and crushed robots under their boots. Their teamwork was perfect, honed by centuries of tradition and practice. They reached the center in 17 minutes. A new record. The crowd went wild. Vectar raised his fist in triumph. "Let the children try to match that," he called out. The humans walked to their starting position. Hajun gathered his team close. "Remember the plan," he said quietly. "We are not them. We do not fight their way." When the signal sounded, the human team did something nobody expected. They split up. Hajun and Minho went left. Nari and Doyen went right. Yunji and Sora went straight up, using grappling equipment to reach higher levels. The crowd muttered in confusion. This was not how the trial worked. Teams were supposed to stay together, to use combined strength. But the humans were not playing that game. Minho reached the first security node and pulled out tools. 30 seconds later, an entire section of turrets went dark. He had not destroyed them. He had shut them off. Sora found an environmental control panel and started typing. Suddenly, fog filled the eastern section of the arena. Drones began circling blindly, their sensors confused. Nari took position on a high platform and started shooting, but not at robots. She was hitting power conduits, creating cascading failures in the defense grid. Doyen found a weapons cache meant for spectacle and started reprogramming combat robots. Within minutes, the robots were fighting each other instead of the humans. Hajun moved through the chaos like he was taking a walk. He did not need to fight because Minho had cleared his path. He did not need to hide because Sora had created cover. He simply moved toward the center, adapting his route every time an obstacle appeared. The crowd had gone completely silent. This was not combat. This was something else, something they had never seen before. The humans reached the center platform in 14 minutes. Hajun activated the beacon. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the scoreboard updated. The human time flashed in bright numbers above the Valkyrian score. Hajun looked up at Vectar in the viewing box. The Valkyrian commander was not laughing anymore. His expression was stone. The 6 humans walked out of the arena together. They did not celebrate. They did not smile. They simply left, as if breaking a galactic record was just another day at work. Behind them, the crowd slowly began to react. Not with laughter this time. With shock. With confusion. And in some corners, with the first stirrings of fear. In their small quarters that night, the team finally allowed themselves to relax. Minho was checking their equipment. Sora was reviewing footage of the trial. Hyunji was treating minor scrapes and bruises. "They will not underestimate us tomorrow," Nari said. "Good," Hajun replied. We do not want them confused. We want them scared. Outside their window, Carthion Prime glittered with lights. Somewhere in the station, the Valkyrans were watching recordings of the trial, trying to understand what had gone wrong, trying to figure out how children had beaten them at a game they had mastered for centuries. They would learn the answer soon enough. Humans did not play the game they were given. Humans changed the rules. The announcement of the second trial came at dawn. The humans were eating breakfast in their quarters when the message appeared on their displays. Haijun read it aloud. Trial 2. The Hunt. A wilderness environment spanning 500 square kilometers. Duration 48 hours. The Valkyrian team will hunt the human team. If any humans remain free at the end of the time period, Earth wins. If all humans are captured or neutralized, the Valkyrans win. Doyen stopped chewing. They get to hunt us? It is rigged, Minho said, already pulling up maps on his tablet. They choose the environment. They have better tracking equipment. They are stronger and faster. And they are very, very angry at us, Sora added. She had been watching news feeds all night. The Valkyrian delegation had filed 3 formal complaints about the first trial. All of them rejected. Their pride was wounded. Haijun looked at his team. They want revenge. That makes them predictable. The transport took both teams to the trial zone, a massive biodome that simulated a mountainous forest region. The terrain was rough with dense vegetation, rocky cliffs, and fast-moving rivers. The temperature would range from freezing at night to scorching during the day. At the landing zone, Vectar approached the humans one more time. His forearms were crossed and his eyes held no humor now. You cheated yesterday, he said bluntly. You used tricks instead of strength. We used intelligence, Haijun replied calmly. Is that against the rules? Today there will be nowhere to hide, Vectar continued. No machines to hack. No systems to manipulate. Just you and us, prey and predator. He leaned down, his face close to Haijun's. We have been hunting for 3,000 years. What have you been doing? Surviving things that wanted to hunt us, Haijun said, and learning to hunt them back. The teams were given 1 hour to prepare before the hunt began. The humans moved quickly into the forest, heading toward higher ground. They moved in silence, each person knowing their role without needing to speak. They stopped at a cliff overlooking a valley. Haijun spread a physical map on a rock. No electronics for this discussion. The Valkyrans might be listening. They will expect us to run, he said quietly. To hide and survive for 48 hours. We are not going to run, Nari said. It was not a question. We are going to hunt them first, Haijun confirmed. Yunji, Doyen, you two lay traps on the southern approaches? Minho, I need false trails leading east. Nari, find high ground with multiple shooting positions. Sora and I will set up observation posts. This is insane, Minho muttered, but he was smiling. I love it. The hunt began at noon. The Valkyrans deployed in a standard search formation, using their superior technology to scan for heat signatures and movement. They had done this hundreds of times. Their tactics were proven and efficient. By sunset, they had found nothing except abandoned campsites and cold fire pits. Vectar was not concerned. Humans were clever, but they could not hide forever. He split his team into 3 groups of 4, covering more ground. Their communicators kept them connected. Their armor protected them from the environment. Night fell. The temperature dropped rapidly. The Valkyrans had thermal vision. This should have made things easier. It did not. The first Valkyran warrior, a scout named Rathul, was following a trail near a stream when the ground suddenly gave way beneath him. He fell 3 meters into a pit. The landing was soft, cushioned by something. Before he could react, a net dropped from above, tangling his limbs. His communicator was torn away. Gas filled the pit, not lethal but very effective. He fell unconscious within seconds. When his team found him 2 hours later, he was unharmed, wrapped in thermal blankets with a note pinned to his chest. Please retire from the trial. Thank you, Earth Team. His weapons were gone. His armor was intact but powered down. He was alive and embarrassed. Vectar stared at the note, his jaw clenched. Spread out, he ordered. Stay alert. They are close, but the humans were not close. They were everywhere. The second incident happened just before midnight. 2 Valkyrian warriors were crossing a ridge when rocks began falling from above. Not a natural landslide. Precisely placed. They raised their shields, and that was when Nari fired from nearly a kilometer away. She did not aim to kill. She aimed for their shield generators. 2 shots, 2 hits. The shields flickered and died. More rocks fell. The warriors were not injured, but they were pinned down, unable to move without risking injury. By the time their teammates reached them, someone had already disarmed them and left another polite note. On the second day, the Valkyrians were down to 8 active hunters. Vectar called them together in a fortified position. His warriors looked tired and frustrated. This was not how hunts were supposed to work. They are playing games with us, one warrior complained. They fight without honor, another added. They fight to win, Vectar corrected sharply. And we are losing. He pulled up their tactical map. Red markers showed where his warriors had been captured. The pattern made no sense. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once. They are manipulating us, Vectar realized suddenly. Every trail we follow, every track we find, they want us to go certain places. He looked at the map again, seeing it differently now. The captured warriors formed a line. The line was pushing them toward a specific location, a canyon with steep walls and limited exits. It is a trap, he said. Pull everyone back. We regroup and change tactics, but Hajun had predicted this too. He had predicted it because it was what he would do. When an enemy is smart enough to see your trap, you make the trap the distraction. While the Valkyrians were retreating toward what they thought was safety, Minho was already there. He had spent 12 hours preparing this position. Not with high technology. The Valkyrians would scan for that. Instead, he had used rocks, logs, rope, and gravity. Simple machines. Physics that had worked for thousands of years before humans reached space. The Valkyrian warriors entered a clearing that looked safe. That was when everything went wrong at once. Trees fell, blocking exits. Tripwires released logs that swung like massive pendulums. Smoke bombs created confusion. The ground itself seemed to rebel against them, and through it all 6 humans moved like shadows. Yunji disarmed warriors with precise strikes to nerve clusters. Doyen used a club made from a tree branch, hitting armor joints where they were weakest. Sora appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Nari provided cover fire, always shooting to disable rather than kill. When it was over, every remaining Valkyrian warrior was sitting on the ground, disarmed and exhausted. Vectar himself sat against a tree, breathing hard. His armor was dented. His pride was shattered. Hajun walked up to him. The young human looked tired too, covered in dirt and sweat. But he was standing. You are skilled hunters, Hajun said respectfully. But you hunt game that runs away. Humans? We are the prey that learned to hunt back. Vectar looked up at this child who had defeated him. How? He asked simply. Your species evolved on a world where you were the strongest, Hajun explained. You learned to hunt through power and skill. My species evolved on a world where everything was stronger than us. We learned to hunt through patience and tricks. We learned to make the strong waste their strength while we conserved ours. We learned to turn the environment into a weapon. He offered his hand to Vectar. We did not dishonor you. We simply fought the only way we know how. The way that kept our ancestors alive long enough to reach the stars. Vectar stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then he took it. The massive warrior let the young human help him stand. Above them, the artificial sun was setting on the second day. The trial timer still had 6 hours remaining, but the outcome was already clear. Earth's children had won. And the finest warriors the galaxy had to offer sat defeated. Not by superior strength or technology, but by something they had never encountered before. They had been beaten by humans who refused to play the role of prey. The Galactic Council chambers were in chaos. Representatives from 300 species shouted at each other in a dozen different languages. Translators struggled to keep up. Security officers stood nervously at the doors, unsure if they should intervene. At the center of the storm was one simple fact. Earth had won both trials. Impossible, a Xanthari delegate declared, his crystalline body flashing with agitation. The Valkyrians have never lost. They lost to children, another voice called out. How can we trust their military strength if they cannot defeat human juveniles? The Valkyrian ambassador stood rigid, his forearms held stiffly at his sides. His people's reputation was crumbling with every word spoken. 3,000 years of military dominance, questioned because of 6 young humans. The trials were legitimate, the council arbiter announced, her voice cutting through the noise. All rules were followed. Earth's victory stands. Then we demand a review of the rules, someone shouted. The rules have stood for 10,000 years, the Arbiter replied coldly. They will not be changed because the result embarrasses you. In Earth's temporary embassy on Carthion Prime, Admiral Park watched the Council feed with grim satisfaction. Beside him, Colonel Kim smiled slightly. They are tearing each other apart, Park observed. Good, Kim replied. Let them see what happens when they underestimate us. But the celebration was interrupted by a new message. The Velkaran delegation was requesting a private meeting with Earth's representatives. Immediately, Park and Kim exchanged glances. This could be anything from a diplomatic protest to a declaration of war. They gathered their security team and went to meet the Velkarans. Vektar stood in the center of the room, still wearing his battered armor from the hunt. His warriors stood behind him, all of them showing signs of the trials. But there was something different about them now. The arrogance was gone. Admiral Park, Vektar began, his voice formal. I invoke an ancient right. Trial by single combat between champions. One warrior from my team against one warrior from yours. This will settle all matters of honor between our peoples. Park felt his blood run cold. This was a trap. It had to be. Vektar was legendary. He had won 3 previous trials. In single combat, he was undefeated across centuries. You won the trials fairly, Park said carefully. There is no need for this. There is every need, Vektar insisted. The Council mocks my people. They say we were defeated by children through tricks. I must prove that we are still warriors worthy of respect. Grant me this, and regardless of the outcome, the Velkaran Empire will accept Earth as an equal. Kim leaned close to Park. It is a matter of pride. If we refuse, we shame them further. That makes enemies. If we accept, they kill one of our people, Park whispered back. Maybe, Kim said. Or maybe we surprise them again. Back in their quarters, the human team received the news. Hajun immediately volunteered. I am the team leader. This is my responsibility. You are a tactician, not a duelist, Doyen argued. Let me fight. I am stronger. Strength will not beat Vektar, Yunji said quietly. He has fought strong opponents for 300 years. Then what will beat him? Sora asked. Nari had been silent, sitting on her bunk and cleaning her rifle with methodical precision. Now she looked up. Someone who does not try to beat him at all. Everyone turned to look at her. You want to fight him? Hajun asked. I want to outlast him, Nari corrected. He is stronger and more skilled. But I am patient. And humans. We do not quit. The arena was packed even fuller than before. News of the duel had spread across the galaxy. Betting markets reopened. This time the odds were more reasonable. 5-1 against Earth. People had learned not to completely dismiss humanity, but 5-1 still meant most of the galaxy expected Vektar to win. The 2 fighters entered from opposite sides. Vektar wore ceremonial armor, lighter than his battle gear but still impressive. He carried a powered sword that hummed with energy. He looked like a god of war. Nari wore simple combat gear and carried a single knife. She looked impossibly small compared to her opponent, but her eyes were calm. She had spent days watching footage of Vektar fighting. She knew his patterns, his preferences, his habits. The Arbiter explained the rules. The fight continued until one fighter yielded or was unable to continue. Lethal force was permitted but not required. Medical teams stood ready, the signal sounded. Vektar did not charge. He was not a fool. He had learned to respect human tactics. He advanced carefully, his sword held ready, watching for tricks. Nari backed away, circling. She did not attack. She just watched him, her knife held low. Will you not fight? Vektar called out. Nari said nothing. She just kept moving, keeping distance between them. Vektar attacked. His sword flashed in a pattern practiced for centuries. It should have been impossible to dodge. But Nari had seen this pattern in recordings. She knew where the blade would be. She slipped past it by centimeters. The crowd gasped. Vektar attacked again, faster, more aggressive. His blade cut through the air where Nari had been a moment before. But she was not there. She had rolled aside, coming up with her knife extended. She made a single cut across his arm, shallow but precise. First blood to earth. Vektar roared and pressed his attack. For 10 minutes he drove Nari across the arena. His blade was everywhere. Any one of those strikes could have ended the fight. But none of them landed, and each time Nari dodged, she left a small cut. His leg, his side, his shoulder. None of them serious. But they accumulated. The crowd began to understand what they were watching. This was not a fight. This was a lesson in persistence. An hour passed. Vectar was breathing hard now. His swings were slower, his movements less precise. The small cuts were bleeding, and while none were dangerous, they were constant reminders of his failure to land a decisive blow. Nari had been hit too. Her arm was burned from a glancing blow. Her ribs were bruised. But she kept moving, kept circling, kept waiting. 2 hours. Vectar was visibly tired. His species was strong, but their endurance was limited. They were sprinters, not marathon runners. Nari's legs ached. Her lungs burned, but she had run marathons as training. She had learned to push through pain that would drop others. 3 hours. Vectar's attacks became desperate. He knew he was losing, not through defeat but through exhaustion. This human would not stop, would not quit, would not give up. His blade caught her shoulder, a solid hit. Nari cried out and stumbled. Vectar raised his sword for a finishing strike, and Nari was not there. She had rolled under his guard. Her knife flashed up, stopping just before his throat. "Yield," she said quietly, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. Vectar looked down at the blade against his skin. This human could have killed him. Should have killed him, but she was giving him the chance to surrender with honor. His sword clattered to the ground. "I yield," he said. The arena was silent. Then slowly the crowd began to cheer. Not just for Nari, for both fighters. They had witnessed something rare. Not just a fight, but a demonstration of two different kinds of strength. Nari stepped back and offered her hand. Vectar took it, and this time there was no condescension in his eyes. Only respect. "How?" he asked. "You are wounded, tired. How do you keep fighting?" "Because stopping is not in our nature," Nari replied. "Humans do not know when to quit. It is both our greatest weakness and our greatest strength." Medical teams rushed forward to treat both fighters. As they were led away, the crowd continued cheering. The betting markets showed something unprecedented. For the first time in council history, a species had moved from the bottom tier to the middle tier in a single trial season. That night, Vectar requested another meeting with the human team. When they arrived, they found him without armor, his wounds bandaged. "I have fought for 3 centuries," he said. "I have faced the strongest warriors in the galaxy. But today I learned something new." He looked at each of the 6 humans. Strength is not just power. It is also the refusal to accept defeat. He bowed, a gesture of deep respect in Valkyrian culture. "You have taught me this, and for that I am grateful." Hajun bowed in return. "You honored us by taking us seriously. That is all we asked for." Outside the windows, the stars shone cold and distant. Earth was far away, but the 6 humans felt closer to home than they had in weeks. They had proven what they came to prove. They were not children playing at war. They were warriors who simply fought differently than anyone expected. The closing ceremony should have been simple. The Arbiter would declare Earth the winner, award them their new status in the Council, and everyone would go home. That was how it had worked for 10,000 years. But nothing about these trials had been simple. When the ceremony began, Vectar stood with his warriors on the arena floor. The human team stood opposite them. The crowd filled the stands, thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds. Everyone expected speeches and formalities. Instead, Vectar did something that had never happened in the history of the trials. He walked across the arena floor to where Admiral Park stood in the Earth delegation box. His warriors followed him. The crowd went silent. "Admiral Park of Earth," Vectar said formally, his voice amplified across the arena. "I make a request on behalf of the Valkyrian Crimson Guard." Park felt everyone's eyes on him. "What request?" "We wish to petition Earth for permission to remain and train with your military forces," Vectar announced. "We have been defeated by methods we do not understand, by tactics we have never seen. We wish to learn from those who beat us." The crowd erupted. Some shouted in support, others in outrage. The idea of the legendary Crimson Guard training with humans was unthinkable. It was backward. It was wrong. It was revolutionary. Park looked at Colonel Kim. She nodded slightly. They had discussed this possibility, though they had not really believed it would happen. "The Crimson Guard would be welcomed on Earth," Park said carefully. "But I must ask, are you certain? Your people may see this as shameful." "Let them," Vectar replied. I have learned more in 3 days fighting humans than in 3 centuries fighting others. Shame is temporary, knowledge is permanent. The Arbiter tried to restore order, but the damage was done. Across the galaxy, other military commanders were watching. They were seeing what Vectar had seen. If the legendary Valkyrians needed to learn from humans, what did that say about everyone else? Within a week, 17 other species had sent quiet requests to Earth asking about military training exchanges. The 6 humans returned home as heroes. Crowds filled the spaceport. News channels broadcast their arrival live. They had left as unknown soldiers. They returned as the team that changed galactic politics. But the celebration felt strange to them. Hajun stood at the ceremony accepting medals and could only think about how tired he was. Nari smiled for the cameras and wondered when her shoulder would stop aching. They had won, yes, but winning had cost them something too. 3 months later, Vectar and his warriors arrived on Earth. They were given quarters at the Tactical Training Center in Colorado. Human soldiers watched them nervously. These aliens had been legends. Now they were students. The first training session was conducted by Colonel Kim herself. She gathered both the Valkyrian warriors and a group of young human soldiers in a classroom. "You are here to learn how humans fight," she began. "But first you must understand why we fight the way we do." She brought up an image of Earth rotating slowly. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us constantly. We were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the toughest. Almost every large predator on our planet could kill us easily. The Valkyrians listened carefully, so we learned to think, to use tools, to work together. We learned patience because the prey we hunted could run faster than us. We learned persistence because we could not catch them quickly. We chased them for hours, for days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting." She showed videos of humans hunting on ancient Earth. Small groups of people following animals across vast distances, never stopping, never giving up. The prey would run, then walk, then stumble, then fall. And the humans would be there, still walking, still following. "That is what Nari did to you, Vectar," Kim continued. "She hunted you the way our ancestors hunted for 1,000,000 years. Not with strength, but with the simple refusal to stop." Vectar nodded slowly. "We have no tradition of this. Our hunts are about the single perfect strike." "Different worlds create different hunters," Kim said. "You are not weak because you lost to us. You simply fought an opponent your evolution did not prepare you for." The training continued for months. The Valkyrian warriors learned human tactics, small unit operations, guerrilla warfare, improvised weapons, psychological operations, all the skills that humans had developed over thousands of years of fighting wars against each other and against their environment. But something unexpected happened. The humans learned too. They learned Valkyrian discipline, their sense of honor, their centuries of refined combat techniques. The training became an exchange, not a one-way lesson. Hajun found himself studying strategy with Vectar late into the night, both of them learning from each other. Nari taught Valkyrian warriors patience, and they taught her techniques that made her even deadlier. A Galactic Council investigator named Thalreth arrived to document everything. She was a scholar from a species known for their historical records. She interviewed everyone involved in the trials and the aftermath. Her final report became required reading in military academies across the galaxy. In it, she wrote, "We made a fundamental error in our understanding of humanity. We assumed their finest would be their strongest, their oldest, their most experienced. We were wrong. Humanity's finest are their young because every human is raised to adapt, to overcome, to survive against impossible odds. Their entire species is forged in the mindset of the underdog. They do not fight the way we do because they cannot. They were never the strongest species on their world. So they learned to fight smart instead. They learned to turn weakness into strength, to make the environment itself a weapon, to outlast opponents who should have crushed them. The Valkyrians sent their finest warriors to face Earth's children, and those warriors were never seen again as they once were. They learned what it meant to think like humans, to fight like humans, to never accept that any battle is truly lost. They were changed forever. The report ended with a warning. Do not make the mistake of underestimating humanity. Do not assume youth means weakness. Do not think their small size means they are not dangerous. Humans are the prey that learned to hunt. They are the weak that became strong. They are the species that conquered a hostile world not through power, but through stubbornness and creativity. And most importantly, never assume you understand human warfare. The moment you think you do, They will show you something new. 2 years after the trials, the Galactic Council held its annual review. Earth's status had officially changed. They were no longer in the lowest tier. They held a position that reflected their actual capabilities, not their age as a spacefaring species. But more importantly, human military advisors were now requested by species across the galaxy. Human tactical doctrine was being studied in alien academies. Human soldiers were respected, not feared, but definitely respected. Vekatar remained on Earth, eventually becoming an instructor at the Tactical Training Center. His warriors integrated into various human military units, teaching and learning in equal measure. One day, a reporter asked Vekatar if he regretted losing the trials. Regret? He considered the question. No, I regret nothing. I was given a gift. I was shown that I had stopped learning, stopped growing. I thought I knew everything about combat. Then I met humans who showed me I knew almost nothing about survival. The reporter pressed further. But you were legendary. The Unbroken. Now you train human soldiers. Is that not beneath you? Vekatar laughed, a sound that no longer held arrogance but genuine warmth. Beneath me? I am privileged to train alongside humans. They are the most terrifying warriors in the galaxy, and most of them do not even realize it yet. On Earth, the 6 members of the original trials team had gone their separate ways. Hajun was teaching at a military academy. Nari had joined a special operations unit. Doyen was designing new weapon systems. Unji was training combat medics. Minho was developing field engineering protocols. Sora had become an instructor in infiltration tactics. They gathered once a year on the anniversary of their victory, not to celebrate but to remember. They had been young soldiers sent to face the galaxy's finest. They had been expected to lose. Instead, they had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten, that human children were not weak. They were simply humans who had not finished growing yet, and fully grown humans with all their adaptability and stubbornness and creative violence were absolutely terrifying. At one of these reunions, Doyun raised his glass. Do you remember what Admiral Park told us before we left? He said we were not the biggest or the strongest, Nari recalled. He said we would have to be smarter, faster, more creative, more stubborn, Yunji added. He was right, Hajun said quietly. But he left out one thing. What? Sora asked. He should have warned the Valkyrians, Hajun replied with a slight smile, because they had no idea what they were facing. The 6 of them laughed, remembering those nervous days before the trials. Remembering the doubt and fear. Remembering how they had transformed that fear into fuel. Outside, Earth turned below them, that small blue world that had produced the species everyone had underestimated. The species that had climbed from the bottom of their food chain to the top through nothing but stubbornness and intelligence, the species that sent their children to face the galaxy's finest warriors, and the finest were changed forever, learning